Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. Got out to the range Friday afternoon, and there were 4 of us, including 12-year-old Nicholas. He's been on the show before when he was talking about the deer. He got his first deer this year. Shooting an AR-15, 223. He was shooting that rifle and just banging steel with it and having a bunch of fun. And, God, we had a bunch of different rifles out. We were trying different things and different people bringing their guns out. And, not shooting a whole lot. We were shooting one at a time, shooting off a bench, and then a little bit offhand. But one of the things I was doing, and I probably have mentioned this already, I'm getting back into hand loading and pulling all my gear together after our big move out here to Idaho. A lot of it's still in boxes. But one of the things I wanted to do is tinker around with some really reduced loads. And so I have a 7mm08 Remington. It's a Ruger Precision. It's a Ruger American rifle. Lightweight rifle. And the 7mm08 is one of the great calibers. Kind of a 7mm Mauser on a little light dose of steroids, just a little bit hotter. Recoil is a little bit less than a 308. But I've been wanting to tinker with Trail Boss powder. It's an IMR Trail Boss that's available through Hodgdon. I think it was originally created for the cowboy action folks because it's very low density, fluffy. It fills up a case. And the idea there being that you could use a light load of it, a light load being it doesn't produce a lot of velocity, but it's not like a 3-grain load. It's, it fills the case. Basically, what you're trying to do is make sure you don't double charge. On something like a 45 Colt case, if you used a super light load of a regular powder, it wouldn't fill very much of the case, and it would be possible to somehow double charge it. And then you could really have excess pressures. With Trail Boss, it's so fluffy and bulky, it'll fill up the case, and you cannot possibly double charge it. And so Hodgdon has put out this information on their website. They've got all these different loads I'm looking at the list now for things like 243 Winchester, 25-06, 270, etc. 7 mag, 308, 30-06 with these incredibly light loads. For instance, in the 7mm08, normally with a 120 grain bullet, I'd be getting 3,000, 3,100 feet per second with a full load. The load I was using was about 14 grains of Trail Boss, roughly, and getting about 1,300 feet per second, so less than half the velocity. So what's it like to shoot that? Well, I wasn't sure, but I loaded up 10 rounds, took it out to the range, and shot the first one, and I had the same reaction everybody else did, because everybody had to shoot it. As soon as you pull the trigger, you start giggling. It's like, wow, that was nothing. It's like, poof. And still hit the steel target at 100 yards. For whatever reason, it shot to the same point of aim at 100 yards. Now, understanding it, this is not a load I would use for hunting. It's too light for that. And you're going to get a lot of drop out of it because you have a lot lower velocity. It's much slower. But for just going out and having fun, what a great deal. I mean, if you're thinking, well, I love my .06, but it kicks too much to go out and just shoot it a lot, or my 7 mag, whatever. Not a worry. Trail Boss. This stuff is like magic. And you get a big can of it. It normally would be like an 8-pound jug of powder, but it's only 5 pounds. Again, because it's so fluffy, if you will. Occupies so much space for the weight. And you're using, I'm looking at some of these loads here. 14, 11, 17 grains. You're not using a lot of powder. And you just load it up like you would any other load to take it out, and it's kind of poof. And we were watching people shoot it, and the comment that several people made was, the gun didn't even move. Yeah, I know. It's kind of fun. Why would you do that? Well, obviously because it's fun, but more practical than that is the only way you get better at shooting is to shoot. I mean, I understand that may sound pretty simple, but you have to pull the trigger a lot. And with rifles that have any kind of recoil, and that could be from 7mm 08 up, heck, it could be lower than that if you're shooting it a lot. At a certain point, it's not fun anymore. It just stops being fun. I had a great example of this some years ago when I was working at the NRA. I was a technical editor there, and I was out at the range, and I was working up some loads for a 375 H&H. That's a pretty powerful cartridge. And I was out there all afternoon, and as I remember it, I shot roughly 75 rounds of 375 H&H. You know, and I was young and bulletproof and invincible and all that stuff, except my body said, nope, not doing that anymore. And it's not just that you can develop a flinch, and you can. It's just you become a bad shot because you're anticipating every shot. Well, I powered through all of that, and I finally got to the point where my body said, we're done. And it was the weirdest thing. I would get all lined up. I'd work these loads up. I'm on the target trying to shoot for groups. I'm going to write all this up for the American Hunter magazine. I couldn't pull the trigger anymore. I could not pull the trigger. I'm all lined up. I'm ready to go. I'm trying to pull the trigger. And my brain's going, no, we're not doing that anymore. Thank you very much. Now, I'm sure I could have slapped it. I could have done that and gotten it to go off. But in terms of just trying to put a nice, steady pressure on the trigger so it goes off and I could shoot for groups, we were done. Whatever that mechanism in your brain is that says, no, you have had enough of this today. And somewhere between that, which was way down the line, 75 rounds of 375, somewhere between that and when I started, I'm sure that the shooting started to deteriorate. And I can tell you for sure it was not fun. This is not something you would do unless you're required to do it, to get the article, to do the whatever it is. And that may be 20 rounds of 30-06 or 7 mag or 300 mag. But shooting lighter loads, you go, I don't do that. In fact, why couldn't you do that and load up light loads with lighter bullets and use those for some sort of varmint shooting with your big game rifle? Ground squirrels, prairie dogs, woodchucks, something along those lines. More trigger time leads to you being a better shooter, leads to you understanding your gun. Oh, and one other thing, as I'm watching people shoot off the bench. Part of your conscious training, if you're shooting a bolt-action rifle, should be don't worry about the brass. If you were shooting your semi-auto, it would be flinging out there, and later on you'd go pick it up. But for some reason, with a bolt action, we want to ease the bolt back, catch the fired brass, put it down on the bench, load another round in. What you're doing, every action with your rifle is a training event. So what you're doing is you're training yourself to not work the bolt. So when you get on that deer or that elk or that antelope or whatever it is, and you fire the shot and you need a follow-up shot, you're having to consciously think about working the bolt. And chances are you're going to ease it back and very possibly induce some kind of failure to feed. What you should be doing when you're working a bolt action, you're shooting a bolt action for the bench, at least I would suggest this. Once you're past the low development, once you're past I'm shooting just for super duper groups, little B groups, load the magazine up. When you fire the shot, you work the bolt. And I mean, when you work the bolt like you're trying to yank that thing back. And when it comes all the way back, you want to hit the stop and fling that brass far out and then jam it forward and lock it down. Try doing it with an open hand. Instead of grabbing the round bolt knob, just put your hand under the bolt with your palm facing up, flip it up, then rotate your hand so the palm is facing backwards towards you. Yank it back with an open palm, rotate your hand around, now your palm is facing forward, jam it forward, and then flip it down. you will find that you are very fast with bolt action. And also you're going to have pretty much no failures to feed or any problems because you're working it the way it's supposed to work. You're racking it back, you're getting that empty out, you're putting a fresh load in there. Do that every time. Then it will be automatic for you to put a fresh round in.